What's up guys, it's Jay with Bearded Dad Fishing, and over the last couple years I've put out lots of videos with many targeting specifically the beginner kayak angler. Whether it's building your own kayak crate, picking out kayak safety gear, or the best accessories to get out on the water. And since these videos have been out for a couple years in many cases, they get spread out and they're not as easily found. So what I've done is I've taken all of these videos that are specifically for beginner kayak anglers and put them in one video, which is this one right here. So if you've been following me for a while, chances are you've seen some of these videos or maybe even all of them in the past. And if you're finding me for the first time, then you're in for a jam-packed video with lots of great information for starting your kayak fishing journey. These videos include the top beginner kayak accessories, the top kayak fishing mistakes, making your own kayak crate, setting up your fish finder on your kayak for the first time, kayak safety gear, things I wish I knew before I started kayak fishing, and lastly, kayak maintenance. So while you're watching, if you have any questions, comment them down below and we'll get the conversation going. But first, dad joke of the day: what do aliens like to eat? Unidentified frying objects. First item on our list is the most important accessory you need for kayak fishing, and it should be the first thing you buy immediately after you buy your kayak, and that is a life jacket, also known as a PFD or a personal flotation device. So there's lots of different types that you can get, and we'll go over that in a second. But the biggest complaint that I hear for people that don't like to wear life jackets is that they say they're a good swimmer, they don't swim in big water, they're in shallow water, etc. The reality is none of that matters. There's a lot of unforeseen, unexpected things that can happen on the water, and you need to be protected at all times. Above fishing, above having a great day out, your main priority is to come back home to your loved ones and your family members. Now you can get a standard life jacket that doesn't have any frills or anything special. It's not a fishing type of life jacket. It's just something that buckles in the front, and that's fine. That's gonna be your most affordable option, but it's not gonna be the most comfortable, especially when you're sitting in a kayak. Your next options up are gonna be when you start looking at fishing life jackets specifically for the angler. So this is my NRS Chinook OS, and you'll notice right off the gate, tons of pockets, something you won't find on a non-fishing life jacket. So, I mean, you could put everything in here from your whistle, your fishing license, your pliers, whatever it is, tons of storage on these things, which is great. It also has clips for a radio or a safety knife. And one thing too to note is that I definitely recommend get something with really bright colors. Now camo looks cool, OD green looks cool, but in reality you don't want to blend into the water. You want to stand out as much as you can because kayaks are the slowest and the lowest things on the water, so give yourself a slight advantage by getting something nice and bright. Your next step up from a fishing specific life jacket is going to be an inflatable life jacket, and this is the Onyx AM24. Absolutely love this thing. After I had the Chinook with me for 2 years, I upgraded to this here, and it's much more comfortable. Now the downside of something like the Chinook is that it is very warm in the summertime. I mean, these panels are very thick. That's more than 2 inches thick, you know, on the back as well. So you gotta remember, if you're out there, if you're down south, or if you're fishing here in the summers or whatever it is, it gets hot. So the inflatable life jacket kind of cures that problem because they're so light. And all they do is they come right around you, and I'll try not to mess with the mic too much here, and then you just buckle right in the front. And it's real simple. These are about in the same price range, so they're not wildly more expensive. You're looking at about $130 to $160. While the regular fishing life jackets, like this NRS Chinook, is about $140, but there are ones you can find, different brands that might be in the $60 to $80 range with the pockets and everything else as well. And the second item you need for your kayak is a good kayak cart. You need to find a way to transport your kayak from your car to the launch and back, or to your garage and back, or whatever it is. So make sure you get yourself a good kayak cart. There are tons of options on Amazon for kayak carts, but not all are created equally. I've been using the Wilderness Systems kayak cart for 3 years, and that thing has held up and done amazing for me and the kayak. It just makes it so effortless to load and to take to and from the launch. However, last year I compared the Wilderness Systems cart with the Viver cart. I actually found out that the Viver cart held up its own against the Wilderness Systems cart, and it's for a fraction of the price. So I'll make sure to link the video down below so you can see the comparison, and I'll also link below some of the options for Kayak Carts. One thing to make sure though is that you're picking a cart that your manufacturer recommends. So if it doesn't say that it recommends a scupper hole cart, don't get one. If you crack it in the hole, which a lot of these carts tend to do, they will not honor the warranty because they specifically recommend against using those type of carts. So make sure you get the right cart, and your back and your kayak will both thank you. And the third must-have accessory for kayak fishing is a first aid kit. Now you can go about this many different ways. You can buy a pre-made first aid kit on Amazon, or you can make your own. I have a little simple one that I carry with me on my kayak, and it's just a little sandwich baggie with Band-Aids, with antiseptic cream, alcohol wipes, liquid Band-Aid. And this is really just for small cuts and bruises. You hook yourself, you cut yourself or whatever. I'm glad I've had it with me because there's been times where I did just that and I was able to like cover up the boo-boo with a Band-Aid. You know, this isn't gonna stop any major bleeding, but it's nice to have as a convenience. If you want a kit for more traumatic blood loss, you'll need something like this bleeding control kit. Now I bought this on Amazon, so I'll put the link in the description below, but make sure you don't get a knockoff kit because there's a lot of knockoff ones out there with fake tourniquets and everything else. This is like a full certified one by Stop the Bleed. So Stop the Bleed actually recommends these. They have tourniquets in here, they have gauze, they have shears for clothing, they have all types of things you might need in case of a traumatic accident. And the fourth must-have accessory is a phone tether. Now this is the Rogue phone tether. They sell them on Amazon. They're about 20 bucks. But the nice thing about this is that it's silicone, so it adjusts to any phone, and you stretch it right over your phone on the top and the bottom. And just like that, it's on and it's not going anywhere. So it's fully adjustable. You don't have to get it specifically for your phone. Has a tether and a carabiner on the end. So what I do is I clip it onto my life jacket and then put it in my hoodie pocket or my pants pocket. And that's how I carry it. I mean, everyone's setup is different, but get yourself a phone tether because even if your phone is waterproof, it doesn't float. And those little floating bags are the worst. They get all gummed up and everything. I really don't like them. Something like this for 20 bucks, totally worth it to save your phone from falling in the water. And number 5 on our list is a light. Now this is the Yak Attack 360 light, and this thing is really nice when you're out on the water, either early in the morning or after dusk. This is great to have. A nice bright flag, a little twist on light on the top here. So you just twist it and the light's on, off, on. Really easy and straightforward. Something like this just goes right on your track. But Yak Attack also sells the one, so if you don't have a track on the back, it sells a track that you could screw right into your kayak. But I would consider this a must-have so that other people can see you out on the water. Again, you're the slowest and lowest vessel out there, so add something of color, something with a light to kind of work to your advantage. Now the nice thing about the Yak Attack 360 light is that this comes off and the flag doubles as a bag. So the whole system just tears apart like this, and you put it right in the flag as storage. And there you go, and you got it with you. Really easy to use. And another light that you're gonna wanna consider to take with you is a hat lamp. So I'll link this down below as well, but this is great when you're setting up before the sun has come up. And something like this just clips right on your hat, and you can, I don't have batteries in it right now, but you on and off, and that way you can see what you're working on in front of you. It's also great if you're doing some night fishing, something that's not gonna blow out your vision when you're out there because it's not pointed at you, it's pointed away from you. So you can turn it on, work on whatever things you gotta do, tie up your next lure or whatever it is. But I keep one of these in my truck at all times because most of the times in the summer I'm setting up before the sun came up, and they're not that expensive. So again, I'll link it down in the description below. And item number 6 will help you stay put when you wanna stay put, and that is an anchor. So there's lots of different options when it comes to anchors, but if you don't have a pedal drive to make micro adjustments or a motor that allows for micro adjustments, then you wanna get something like this, especially if you're fishing rivers. Now this is a claw anchor, and you just twist it and the claws come out, and it's more likely to grab something to help you stay put. But there's also mushroom anchors. The Anchor Wizard is an awesome gear to add to your setup, so it allows you to use the anchor without having a bunch of rope and mess on your deck. Another option is a stakeout pole that you can put right through a scupper hole, or have the accessory mount on your rail, and that way it keeps you in place using that pole. Of course, a more expensive option, but it does look cooler, is the micro power pole. Something that you can put on the stern of your kayak, hit the button, and that thing comes straight down and just locks you in place. If you do a lot of shallow fishing, that's something that actually might be a really good thing to add to your setup. But if you're trying to keep it on budget right now, just a simple anchor or an anchor wizard will work great so that you can stay put while you're fishing. And must-have number 7 is a rod holder. So if you don't have rod holders already built into your kayak, or if you don't have a kayak crate with you, a rod holder is a great addition to have. These just go directly on your rails. So this is a Yak Attack Omega Pro rod holder, and it has a lock and load mount. So you would just attach this to the rail, and then the rod holder itself could come in and out, and you just lock it with a button and it doesn't go anywhere. This is a great option to have, again, if you don't have built-in mounts for your rods, or if you want to do trolling, you can set these up on the rails and angle them outwards and down so that you control. A cool feature that they have is this top part right here can lock right over your rod. So if you are trolling and a big fish hooks on, you don't gotta worry about the rod slipping out for whatever reason. You just turn it and you're good to go. A lot of people like to have them in pairs and to put them on 2 sides, or to put a couple of them behind them. Again, if they don't have a crate, or if they don't want it attached to their crate. So these are really versatile, but very useful when you're out on the water. And speaking about crates, number 8 is a kayak crate. And that rhymes, but not on purpose. So make sure you get yourself a kayak crate to stay organized on the water. We take a lot of gear with us. We take a lot of tackle, a lot of stuff with us. And this is the best way to keep it all organized in one place. And you don't have to go overboard with the price either. You can stay on budget. I created this crate myself, so I'll link the video down below on how I made it step by step, but they're so easy to make, and you can make it for less than 20 or 30 bucks, especially if you find these crates lying around, which I did. I had them in my shed and I didn't even know. A lot of these crates are lying around. People will give them away for free, etc. But I had this on the water for 3 full years, and it has held up. I mean, it's like chipped and broken and everything, but it has done really good by me for my first 3 years of kayak fishing. I just upgraded for this upcoming season, and I got a Black Pack Pro by Yak Attack, and those options are gonna be a little bit more expensive, but there's lots of different brands. So if you don't wanna make your own, that's okay, but you can get the Yak Attack Black Pack Pro, you can get the Flambeau Tough Crate, you can get the Wilderness Systems Kayak Crate, lots of different options for many price points. But if you wanna save money and you like to do things yourself, something like this will be really dope. Again, I will link it down below so you can see exactly how I built this kayak crate. And number 9 is small but mighty, and that is a rod float. You should have one of these on every single one of your rods when you're out on the water. They don't look the best when they're on there, but it can save your rods from sinking down, because it does exactly that. It keeps your rod afloat. I've had times where I'm chilling and overhead, I got some branches I didn't see, and it picks up my rods and toss them in the water, and this thing has come in clutch, and I'm really glad I have it. And unfortunately, I've spoken with guys who wish they had them on their rods, but I mean, they don't look great on your rods, which I get. That's why people don't want to put them on there. But at the same time, losing a $200, $300, $400 setup is not something you want either. So I always keep this on all my rods. So all my rods are Impulse rods, and this is my 7-foot OG medium heavy rod by Impulse, which I love, by the way. So I'll link them down below. But it's so easy the way these install, because all you do is you put them around the rod. I don't even know if install is the right word, but boom, it's on. And then with the Velcro strips, it keeps it on there. You know, sometimes you'll hear like the line get caught up in it, and it could be, you know, it could be a little bit of a pain or whatever, but again, I don't have to risk losing my expensive setup. I have this paired up with my Shimano SLX DC, and together this setup is 450 bucks. So even though this is not the best looking type of solution, it's a lot better than losing that setup. I also don't like to have things tethered down, because that's a pain in the butt too, having to turn around, untether it, grab something else, retether it, whatever it is. The rod floats are hassle-free, and they'll keep your rods from sinking and potentially save you a lot of money. And item number 10 is pretty self-explanatory, but But if you're fishing from a kayak, you need a fishing net. Get yourself a good net that's worth it, because you don't want to lose a possible PB or a big fish because you're trying to lip it, or you didn't have your net, or you didn't bring it with you, or whatever it is. There's tons of different options. This one I actually got for sale at Cabela's in like the clearance section, but it's collapsible, so it comes down and it just snaps right in place. And benefit, it fits right in my flush mounted rod holders in the back, so I can keep it there. I can keep it in front of me, over my motor, on my autopilot, whatever it is. But get yourself a good net. Something to look into is to get these rubber coated nets, because they're less likely to get stuck on your hooks. And on top of that, it's better for the fish, for their slime, versus the nylon nets. A lot of that stuff can be abrasive and it hurts the fish and their natural coating that they have. So something like this rubber coated net is a good option. They'll range anywhere from 30 bucks online to, you know, maybe $100 for a really good net. But something decent that collapses, and again, good for the fish, is a benefit to have. And must-have number 11 is a pair of fishing pliers. So I actually just bought these at Bass Pro because I needed to upgrade mine. I had a regular set of like Do It Best pliers for many years, and they actually worked really good. I mean, it helps you unhook your fish. This one actually has line cutters. I don't know if you can see it right there, but it has line cutters as well. So if you need to cut line, if you need to cut something extra, they have a lot of different options. You know, they have ones that have the split ring removers on it, all types of things. But get yourself a good pair of pliers. And item number 12 is a pair of lip grips, or lippers, lip grabbers, fish grips, whatever you want to call them. These things help you keep your hands away if you're working with a toothy critter, you know, something like a pickerel or a pike, muskie, walleye, whatever it is. I generally use these if there's trebles in the fish's mouth. So you grab the lower lip, and with your other hand, with the pliers, you'll work out and get the trebles out of there. Some people don't like them, and that's fine. One thing to note is if you get these plastic ones, a lot of them float, which is a nice feature to have in case they take a tumble into the water. They're not gonna sink like the metal ones. And number 13 on our list is a cup holder. So if you don't already have a cup holder, get one. It's perfect, obviously, for your beverages. I always take a Yeti out with me with coffee on the water, and this is perfect for it. But even if you have another cup holder, a lot of kayaks only come with one. If you want to have two beverages, something to add. But this also has the feature of having lure clips on there. So you can hang your lures, you can hang different accessories, you can put different items on there. So a nice cup holder is good to have with you on the water. It just kind of opens up your deck space and gives you a little bit more flexibility to put things where you want to put them. And item number 14, almost to the end of the list, is a dry bag. So you want to have with you a dry bag on the water, especially if you don't have a dry hatch or a dry area to keep your things from getting wet. So a dry bag like this is great for an extra set of clothes, which I definitely recommend you take with you on the water, especially in the colder temperatures. Take an extra set of clothes. You can use these to keep your keys, your wallet, whatever else you want to keep from getting wet. And there's lots of different options. There's smaller ones, there's bigger ones. This is a 20-liter bag, so you can fit quite a bit in here. And the price range is gonna be anywhere from 15 bucks all the way to $40 or $50, but it's a really nice thing to have with you if you wanna take extra gear, again, that you don't wanna get wet. And the last and final item on our list for must-haves for kayak fishing is a good pair of sunglasses. Now there's lots of different varieties and brands that you can look at. My personal favorite is Native Eyewear, and you see a little Native brand on the side there. They are specifically for fishing. They come in different tints depending how you want to fish, but most importantly, you need a pair of sunglasses to keep your eyes from roasting from that sun, because you get a lot of glare off of that water that comes up and hits you in the face. And it's not great for your vision, but it's also not great for fishing, because if you want to do some sight fishing, you know, these polarized glasses help you cut through the water and see what's down there, whether it's vegetation, fish, beds, whatever it is. So make sure you get yourself a really good pair of sunglasses. They don't have to be $200. This was a $90 pair, but they also have $50 and $60 pairs as well from Native. So I'll put a link down below in the description for them. I'm not sponsored by them in any way. I just really like their sunglasses. Mistake number one, I see this all the time. I was guilty of this, all right? When you first get your fishing kayak, buying too many mods too soon, all right? So that could be super, super easy, because You're looking at all these YouTube videos. You're looking, before you even buy your kayak, you've probably seen like 100 hours of YouTube videos. You finally get it, and then now you're just looking at all the mods you could do. The milk crates, the lure organization, the drawers, the rod holders, the GoPro attachments, the extra rails, power poles. It's endless. All right, so the first mistake is just buying them too soon. It's not bad to have a ton of mods. It's not bad to really just deck out your kayak at all. The problem is when you're getting out on the water and you don't know what you like, you don't know if it's comfortable even, you don't know how much you're weighing it down. So the best thing to do is get out on the water, do 1 or 2 trips. They don't have to be super long, but it'll tell you exactly what you need to know about your kayak, what you like about it, what you hate about it, and what you want to change about it. So it'll save you money, and it'll save you the hassle of just putting stuff on there that at the end of the day, you might not even need. All right, guys, mistake number 2 is skimping on safety gear. Okay, that's the #1 thing that you need to take with you over all your tackle, over your rods, over everything, is your safety gear. Okay, and it's different for everybody, but the one thing that's not different is you need a PFD, all right? You need a life jacket or a personal flotation device in case you go overboard into the water, or if you go unconscious because a boat hits you. You need something to keep you up in the water so you don't drown, okay? Even if you're an amazing Olympic swimmer, get yourself a life jacket. That is the #1 thing. There's tons of options. You can get a $10 used one on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, or you can go get a brand new fishing one that's $300, and that's fine, man. Whatever works for you, but get a life jacket and wear it. Another thing that you want to have on you is a whistle at all times. Again, in case you go overboard, you could alert people around you that you're in distress, and you can blow your whistle, and it's gonna take a lot less energy to blow that whistle than it is to yell, all right? And not only that, it's gonna carry further. Another thing that you really wanna look into is some lights. And not everybody needs lights on their kayaks, but if you're fishing early mornings, late at night, get yourself some lights. Some lights you can put on the outside, on the inside. Definitely a 360 light. Railblazer has them, Yak Power, Yak Attack. They all have these 360 lights that have a nice orange, bright pole and a light on top. Just remember, you are the smallest, slowest, and lowest thing on the water when you're fishing out there on these lakes, okay? Everyone's faster than you, everyone's bigger than you, and everyone's higher than you. So it's very hard to see kayakers when they're out there. So we wanna stay safe, okay? If you have the option to get a bright PFD, get a bright one. Get a nice orange or safety green or something. Anything reflective is great, and any lights. So make sure you don't skimp on your safety gear, because it can really come down to saving your life. And before we go to number 3, I am really interested in knowing what you guys have for safety gear on your kayak. So write in your comment below what you carry with you and what's a non-negotiable. What comes up with you on every single trip that's meant to keep you safe. Mistake number 3, killing your back, all right? If you just got a nice fishing kayak, don't cheap out on your transportation for that kayak. So your wheels, all right? Whether you get the landing gear or you get the cart or whatever it is, don't cheap out on your cart, because you will come to regret it. You will hurt yourself. You'll do all types of things. These things are heavy, all right? My Old Town Sportsman it's a 12-foot kayak. It's 85 pounds butt naked. All right, once I throw everything on there, it's easily 170 pounds at the end of the day, okay? And moving that without a proper system is gonna not only hurt my back, which means I'm not gonna fish as much or fish as good, it's gonna hurt the kayak if you're dragging it, if you're pushing it, if you're getting it twisted or whatever. So get a good pair of wheels, all right? This is the Wilderness System kayak cart. It's heavy duty, it's rated for 400 pounds. That might be overkill for what you have, but that's not the only thing on the market. The Sea Tug is another very well-known one. Malone makes some awesome kayak carts, but stay away from any cheapo carts on Amazon, because you can get like a $30 or $40 Amazon cart. But again, if I have an 85-pound kayak and that's naked, on that thing, it's not gonna hold up well. Those things are made for like 40-pound kayaks. If you have a little sit on top or sit inside kayak that's 40 pounds, cool. You can make your own set of wheels. You can buy something cheap and it'll be just fine. But anything more than that, just don't skimp. You spend all this money on your setup and you're gonna be transporting this kayak, sometimes you might be walking hundreds of yards to go launch somewhere. You want something that's gonna save your back in the long run. And the last thing I'll say about your wheels is if your kayak is not rated for scupper hole carts, don't use them. So for instance, Old Town specifically warns against this. Those carts are the ones that have the prongs basically that go into the scupper holes. Not all kayaks are made with reinforced scupper holes. So what's gonna happen is you put all that weight on 2 little prongs in these holes, it's gonna crack and you're gonna get water inside of the kayak, and even worse, you might void your warranty completely. Number 4, don't use ratchet straps. If you don't know what a ratchet strap is, this is a ratchet and the strap goes on the other side. When you're transporting your kayak, if you use ratchet straps, they are very easy to over tighten. All right, that's the good thing about them. They tighten easily. It's not so good for your plastic kayak. All right, if you ratchet this too tightly, you can easily break, crack, fracture the hull. All right, so especially if you're going through a scupper hole or another insert through your handles, anything that can easily just pop out. All right, so you got to remember you're actually tightening against plastic that can pop, break, fracture, whatever. So don't use ratchet straps. There's a better system, and it is a cam strap. Right, so it's the same thing. It's a strap, but the bite on it is just a hand tightened strap, right? Or buckle, I should say. So these are very easy to use. They're user friendly, and most importantly, when you tighten them by hand as hard as you can, and that won't be hard enough to break this kayak unless you're Hulk Hogan or Schwarzenegger, but it sticks. All right, I just tightened that real quick, and I can't pull this at all. A lot of them are rated for 250 pounds or more, and if you're using 2 or 3 of them or 4 of them on your kayak, that thing's not going anywhere. All right, so definitely use cam straps and ditch the ratchet straps. Trust me. All right, guys, mistake number 5 that I see all the time is improper storage of your kayak. So when you're not using your kayak and it's being stored, make sure you're properly putting it where it needs to be put, upside down, whatever the manufacturer recommends for storage of your kayak. Make sure you guys follow it to the T. All right, so especially if you're keeping your kayak outside and it's exposed to the heat or freezing temperatures, all right, it's really important to keep your kayak covered with a tarp, covered in the shade, because the sun will beat it up, break it down, make it brittle, and you don't want that. And as well as from freezing water, if this water collects in your cup holder, in your drive hole, or wherever, and once it freezes, it expands, it'll break your hull like that. So make sure you're keeping it as best you can dry and out of the sun, and per the manufacturer's recommendations. Okay, so this is how I store my kayak when I'm not using it. I actually built this little table / bench with my dad, so it's connected to it's attached to the wall, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4 supports on the kayak. So it's being well supported. It's not just 2 supports and all the weights hanging down on that, because again, 85 pounds on this thing, and that's naked without the chair and the rods that I got inside and everything else. So if you want your kayak to last for a long time, make sure you store it properly. All right, mistake number 6 is not knowing your headspace. What do I mean by that? Is when you're out on the water, you have these nice, expensive, beautiful rods sticking out of your tackle box. You have them sticking out of your rod holder straight up in the air, 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet in the air, and you go under some low-hanging trees, and boom, before you know it, you got caught up in a tree, your rods went over into the lake, whatever. Okay, so always be aware of your headspace and your surroundings. You know, you are really low to the water, but you got these sticks, these rods just shooting up out of your kayak, and it's very easy to get hung up in some trees, especially when you're trying to get a lure out from a bush or a branch or whatever. So keep an eye on your surroundings and know what's above you so you don't lose a very nice, expensive setup. All right, we're on number 7, and this one is good, okay? We're getting towards the end, but number 7 is get yourself a repair kit. All all right? If you are out on the water, especially if you have a pedal kayak or a powered kayak or anything with batteries or whatever, you need a repair kit so you don't get stuck on the water, all right? It can happen. Your prop can break, your shear pin can come off, you know, you lose some, whatever, all right? This is super simple, easy, and convenient to carry with you. I always keep it in my tackle box along with all my lures. You know, it's the same size as a 3600 tackle box. And this one came from Old Town when I bought my kayak. But if yours didn't come with one, again, it's just a single compartment 3600 Plano box. And what I got in here is some electrical tape in case I need to tape something down, some zip ties. Very important to have zip ties because they can temporarily fix almost anything, especially when you pair it with some tape. Screwdriver, because you never know if something needs to get tightened down, you know, a rail or an attachment or accessory. Almost always a screwdriver can fix that issue. All right, some more zip ties, small ones for small problems. All right, little wrench, and this actually fits on my drive, so I tested it first. And I also have a couple nuts that fit that. You don't really need the nuts, but I have it in there already. So a little wrench. And what I did is Old Town has these knobs, these drive knobs, and they're basically made to break if I hit a log or a rock or something. So I keep an extra one with me just in case that happens, as well as an extra prop, which I keep in my front hatch. Okay, so if I'm out there in the water and I break it on the log, I don't gotta sweat it. I have all the tools to just replace it really quickly. I also keep some shear pins in here. I have 2 shear pins because those can break on a pedal drive, and some Loctite. You can have some super glue with you as well, just in case. You just don't want to get caught out in the water with some issues that are definitely avoidable. So have yourself a repair kit so you can fix your problem on the water and get out of there. All right, guys, we're rounding out the list here with number 8. Before we get to that, just remember to follow me on my socials. I put them in the links below, Facebook and Instagram, at Bearded Dad Fishing, okay? So number 8 is a first aid kit, all right? You're out on the water, stuff happens, you usually have bad cell phone signal, or you're far from home, you're far from your car, whatever. Just have a first aid kit with you. Okay, this is my first aid kit. It's not super duper complicated. I got some different types and sizes of Band-Aids. I have some antibiotic ointment, some hydrocortisone cream, some liquid Band-Aid here, right? In case you get cut or whatever, like you get cut and hooked and poked all the time. So you just want to cover that up so you don't get an infection and so you can keep out on the water. On the worst cases that you actually get like hooked past the barb, then this stuff, you'll be thankful to have it. It'll just make your experience better while you're out there, okay? And in addition to that is have a pair of like hook cutters. All right, so these little guys right here come with me too, and they'll cut line, they'll cut other stuff, but if you get hooked, this can easily cut your split ring or cut the trebles off so that way you can do whatever you gotta do, get to the water, get the fish off the hook if he's still on there, and it'll make your time more enjoyable on the water just by having a simple first aid kit like this. If you want to go a little bit further, you can take a trauma kit with you too, something with a tourniquet, some chest seals, compression seals, gauze, all that stuff. I don't really take that on the water with me, but I always have that in the truck with me because you never know and you got to be safe. But first aid kit is a must. All right, guys, we're getting close to the end. Number 9 is not having a rod float or some leashes with you on your kayak, all right? Some of us have expensive rod setups and we still keep them naked on the water, right? All of my rods have these rod floats. They're super cheap. I'm gonna put a link in the description below to some of this stuff, all right? But these rod floats come in a pack of 3 and they're like $10, $12, something like that. And they help your rod float if it goes into the water, if it's dropped, and if we're not watching our headspace, right, like number 6, and our rods get pulled up into the water by some trees or some branches, this will help it float so you're not having to dive down or fish, pun intended, for your rods. Okay, the other option instead of a rod float are some leashes. I started out having these leashes for my rods, but they're quite annoying to have to buckle and unbuckle them every single time I want to grab my rods. So I went to the floats instead. but I still use this for certain items. So I use it for my catch board. I have it on the end of my catch board and it's attached to my seat. So I just pull it out and I have the catch board in front of me for my fish. I also use it for my GoPro case. So in case the case goes overboard, it won't sink or whatever. I can just grab it up real quick. So these leashes can be found online on Amazon, Bass Pro, whatever. They're very cheap. They don't have to be anything fancy, but make sure you get yourself some rod floats for your rods and some leashes for anything else you don't want to lose. All right, guys, we're at number 10, last one. All right, so my final mistake that I see happen to a lot of people starting out with kayak fishing, and that I've done a ton, is that they don't check the weather and the wind reports when they go out on the water. Okay, so it's a beautiful day, the sun might be out, there's not a breeze in the sky, but as soon as you get out on the water, things can turn like that, especially if you're on some big water. Okay, so make sure you check out the weather reports. And this sounds like a dummy thing, but it's so easy to forget. I forget, like I still forget at times. Okay, but the weather report will let you know what's coming up in your area, because the weather could change quickly, especially on these hot, humid days down south, whatever. And check your wind reports. So you could check windy.com, windfinder.com, like all those websites, and there's some other ones. Just Google them and they'll let you know what it's looking like. So when you get out on the water, you know if you're contending with 5-mile-an-hour winds or 20-mile-an-hour winds, because that will make a big difference on A, whether you go fishing, and B, if you go fishing, how you're gonna fish and whether you're gonna bring an anchor with you, because it will change things up and make things dicey, in some cases unsafe. So let's jump into what we need for this build. It's real simple. It's like 5 or 6 things and some tools. So first things first, you need a milk crate. You can get these for free at a bunch of different stores. Get them and they don't use them, so you can probably ask around and get some, or do like I did and look around your garage. They just have to be the same size and preferably the same color if you don't want to spray paint them later. You also need some bungees. So I bought these 2 from a value pack that cost $3. They don't have to be special or strong, just the thin ones will be fine. Carabiner, which again you probably have laying around your house somewhere. Some zip ties. So these are 7-inch zip ties and they're black. And lastly, some rod holders. You can make your own like I did in my last video that I posted up a couple years ago, but these I got off Amazon and they look cleaner. They have the little notch for your reel to sit in, and I just like them better. So I'll put a link down below in the description to this and the other items as well. And we just need a couple tools. So we need some sandpaper. So I have 80 grit, you can get 100 or 120, and we're just gonna use that to smooth out the edges when we cut into the crate. Some cutters to snip off the ends of the zip ties. Safety glasses to protect those eyeballs. You need a power drill and some titanium drill bits. So we're probably gonna use the 1/4 inch and the 5/32 as well. And that's just really for the zip ties. And lastly, you can either use if you want, you can use a hacksaw. It's really not that big of a deal, but we're gonna cut into the plastic. So you can use a jigsaw, or for the fun factor, you could use a rotosaw as well. So I'll probably use this bad boy just because it's fun to use. But again, a hacksaw would be fine. You don't have to get the power tools for that. They cut really easily. So we're gonna get into this. You're gonna see this is so simple to build and it's really functional and it looks good. So let's do it. Okay, so the way this is gonna work is we're gonna have our base milk crate and our top milk crate. So they sit right on top of each other, and we're gonna cut into this top one. So we're just gonna leave basically this piece on there. And once we get the zip ties in, this is gonna hinge just like that, and you'll be able to open and close this thing real simple. So again, they have to be the same size. And once we cut the top, we'll disregard this top portion. We really don't need it. And then you're gonna be left with the bones basically of your crate. So this is the part where you want to put these bad boys on, because you might get some stuff flying back and you need these. And that's it. You got your base. A little bit messy from the shavings, but again, that's funner to use. So you got your base that you're going to use for your lid, and you want to just with the sandpaper, now we're going to kind of go over the edges here and get some of those parts off that aren't quite as refined. With the grinder, with the roto saw, it leaves a lot of smooth edges, again, which is what I like versus using the jigsaw, but we're going to clean it up anyways and get some of those nicks out. The benefit of using 80 grit sandpaper is that it'll take a lot more off. You could clean it up later with something like 200 or 240 if you want, but I think 80 grit is going to be just fine for what we need. I'm really not going to touch it up much after that. All right, so after you sand it down, you got nice smooth edges. You got a couple parts that are a little bit raised, like right here, but it's honestly, it's fine. Like, it's only like a hair raised. I'm not gonna bother with it. If you use an orbital sander, you can get a lot of that stuff down, or I can just go back with the roto saw and clean it up. But again, it's really not that bad. I'm not a perfectionist. This will work perfect for me. So now that we have the lid done, let's start drilling some holes to get this hinged and put some zip ties in. All right, we're gonna get these holes drilled in here, but before we do, just wanna show you what we're looking for. When we line this up, I mean, the four sides are the same, so it doesn't really matter where you're drilling into, but you wanna get a hole in the top of the lid and as close as you can on the bottom. So we're gonna put 1, 2, 3, 4 in there, and it's just gonna function right at just like a hinge, just like that. So again, top of the lid, on the lid, right on the bottom of the lid, and then right on the top of the bottom of the crate, of the bottom crate. It's not confusing at all. All right, so we're gonna use a 3/16 bit, and that's gonna be perfect space for our zip ties to fit right through. So we got them drilled, and now we're putting in our zip ties. Put all 4 of these in first, and then we're gonna get into the bottom part of it. Just pull these bad boys through and put them through the bottom crate, the holes that you drilled in there. All right, now that we have all 4 in there, coming in through the lid and out through the bottom, we just zip them up and then we're trimming off the tails. After you snip the tail ends off, you might want to just go through with your sandpaper and just rub the ends there. That way you're not nipping yourself or cutting yourself later on the sharp edges of the tails that's left over. So there we have it. We have our crate. We got our hinges, aka our zip ties on the back, and it opens just like that. So if you make the zip ties nice and snug, you're gonna get that kind of effect where it just sits there and it doesn't shut real easily, like by itself. But if you leave a little bit of room in there and you don't tighten it all the way, then it'll be a little bit looser. And you might want that, so just adjust it however you see fit. But we got the bones of it done, so that's the hard part. Now we're gonna do the rod holders. We'll attach those again with zip ties, and then we'll get onto the bungees so that we can use this top portion here to hold down your garments or your hat or whatever you want without it flying away with the wind. Okay, so we're gonna attach the rod holders now. So just one thing to be careful of is make sure you don't put them too low, because then this is gonna sit on the ground as opposed to the bottom of your crate. So you could put them up higher, and if you're doing this specific type of rod holders and not doing the PVC ones, it already has enough space back here where it's not gonna clash with the lid when it closes. So even though it's kind of sitting above that line there, you're not gonna get any interference from closing the lid from those rod holders. So just make sure the bottom of this is sitting above the bottom of the crate. All right, so it's all attached. It's on there. I didn't have to drill any holes onto the actual milk crate itself. Again, because you have these little holes on the rod holders that they can go through, and then you have the holes in the crate that you can just piggyback off of those. So now I'm gonna snap the tail ends off again and just hit it with the sandpaper real quick to make sure that it doesn't nip me or cut me later on. Side one's all on, the edges are nipped and cut. Now we're doing side two for the rod holders. We're getting through this really quick, and then once we're done with this, with the last rod holder here, we're gonna put the bungees on and get that going. And that's it. You got your milk crate ready to go. You got your rod holders attached. So last part is just adding these zip ties. Adding these bungees on the top, adding a closure with the carabiner, and we're good to go. So last part coming up. I'm telling you, this is easy, straightforward. If I can do it, you can do it, because I am not that handy. And you're gonna make it happen. And this is stylish. I mean, this looks good. This isn't this isn't a $160 Black Pack Pro or Wilderness Systems, crate, but it's nice and it has everything you need. It's functional. But let me shut up and let's get these bungees on, and we're done. That's it. All right, now it's time to add the bungees to the top of the lid. So again, this is basically gonna just come across the top of your lid here so that you can hold down a jacket or some extra tackle boxes or something, so that when you open your lid, it doesn't just fall out and the wind doesn't pick it up if it's something light enough. So what you got to do is, it comes with these little hooks here. If you can get the bungees that doesn't come with the hook. It's just a long roll, and that'll make your job even easier. But you're gonna want to snap these little ends off, and with the same cutter you can just cut it off. Easy peasy. All right, so we're gonna drill some holes, and essentially I'm gonna drill a hole. This is the front of the crate here. So I'm gonna drill a hole right here that's gonna feed to about a third of the way on this side, come back about 2/3 of the way over here, and finish right here. So you're gonna get a little zigzag, and that will be enough to keep your stuff down and compressed without losing it, hopefully, when you open up your lid. For this, I'm gonna use a 1/4-inch drill bit, just because the bungees are thicker than the zip ties. So we're gonna go with the first hole, again, right in the corner on the front. And then on the other side of the crate, you wanna go about a third of the way up. Doesn't have to be exact, but good enough. Back to the other side where you drilled the first hole. You want to go about 2/3 of the way up. And lastly, on the other side, we're going to put just a hole right here on the end of the lid. Then you can start feeding it through. And once you get the first feed in there, it goes right through, real easy. You're gonna want to tie another knot on this end so it doesn't come out. And you could burn the edges later if you want to make sure that that knot's not gonna get loose. But try to get it as much to the end as you can so that you're not losing a whole lot of bungee. So we got our first side in. All right, so I got to reorient. My bungee is not long enough to do the zigzag that I want to do. So I was gonna go from here to here to here to here, but I have too short of a bungee. So if you have a long bungee, you can do that. Plan B, which is a good plan by the way, is to do since I have 2 bungees, I'm gonna do one that goes from this side to this side, as such, and then I'm gonna put the other bungee that I have, Christmas themed, you feel me? Red and green. We're gonna do it from this side to this side. And you're basically gonna have an X, and it'll function the same exact way. So you're gonna be able to put that stuff under there, and it's gonna hold it down, and you'll have a little bit of bungee left over for the closure, which we'll do next. So let's get these in here. I'm gonna tie my knots. I couldn't do the zigzag I wanted to do, but plan B is just as good as plan A. So we'll make it happen. You want to get it tight and then tie your knot so that way you don't have too much give on this, because if it's too loose then it defeats the purpose of holding your gear down. So hold it down tight and work on your knot here. Just an overhand knot is gonna be perfect for this thing. And there you have it. So you got the first one in, and we're gonna trim this edge, and you're golden. So now we got to put the other one in, and now you got your X to hold down your stuff. All right, so we got to drill another holes in the corner. I'll have a couple extra holes in here, but that's all good, no problems. So let's get these in. Cut the other ends of your bungees. Tight it down, so you want to pull on that. Get your knot in there. Trim your tail end off. And you got it. So we got our bungees in, our knots tied on the ends, and now if you want to put something in there, the bungee will hold it down for you so it's not flapping in the wind, or again, when you open this up, it's not falling out. It's holding it in there. You can use it for extra tackle storage, or again, I use it for my raincoat most of the time because I don't mess around with it. My raincoat and my extra rope, I just put it in there and it doesn't go nowhere. So that's it, guys. We got the bungees in. Now lastly, it's just we're gonna make our closure on the front here. That way it doesn't open when you don't want it to open. All right, we're right at the end. So now we're adding the last step, which is the closure. So we got your carabiner, and you could just slide it through any of the many holes on your milk crate. So I just put it right in the bottom here. And with the last piece of bungee that I had left over from the top project, we're gonna make a hole right in the middle on the lid. and we're gonna put both ends of the bungee in there, tie a little knot, and then essentially you have your closure. So it's just gonna come down and it'll clip into the carabiner. That way you can lock it up when you're moving it or storing it for a while. So let's get that hole drilled, this tied up, and you got your closure. So I'm using a 3/8 inch drill bit, by the way, so that it can accommodate both ends of the bungee going in there. Just make sure that you have enough slack when you're putting this on there so that it reaches your carabiner, but not so much that that it'll end up being loose, so it won't secure it all the way. So you just want the perfect amount of tension on there. So I mean, if you want to just put it on, to just make sure kind of where you got to be, you know, so that way the lid doesn't flap open and you can hold it securely. All right guys, we're all done. We got the closure on here. We added the bungee with the double-handed knot right on the top with the carabiner, and that's it. It's nice and secure, real simple. I told you, I promised you this build was gonna be easy. So we got our 2 crates. We cut off the bottom of the one to make our lid, added our bungees, rod holders, and the closure. All right, we're gonna quickly go over my fish finder kayak setup. Like you guys saw in my last video, I have a Old Town Sportsman 120 PDL. So it's a sit on top kayak. So this system will work on any sit on top kayak because they all have the same basic insides, hull, some changes here and there where you might find the rudders, cables and stuff like that. Or if you have a paddle version, you might not even have a rudder. But let me show you guys real quick. This is my Garmin Echo Map UHG 93 SV. Awesome little sonar. I bought it at the beginning, or I'm sorry, at the end of 2021 on sale. It was at $6.99 at Bass Pro, and you can find them now used for $500 because the 106 SVs went on sale just a couple weeks ago at Bass Pro. Sorry, B was trying to land on the camera here. But yeah, so it's great. It has down imaging, side scan, maps, so it's a really good find, especially for the price. So I have the power cord and the transducer cable coming out of the unit, and I use the Yak Attack through hull kit, which comes with 2 of these seals, and you can put up to 2 cables in each seal. For the little seals, it comes in various sizes, 4 different size cables. So if you have cables that are a little bit thinner than this, that's cool, they got you covered. They also have blanks, which I have on my transducer seal right here. So the one side's blanks because I don't have a second cable running to it. So it's good. It's only 20 bucks. You could buy it on Amazon or Bass Pro Shop. They also have Hobie has their own through hull kit, Old Town has their own through hull kit, and there's a couple other ones, and they all seem fine. Yak Attack, I went with that one just because it's just a 1-inch hole you have to drill out, and you don't have to go through the other side to screw something on, because that can be a little bit, it's hard to get to some of those places on the inside of the hull, which is the case for where I did it right here. As far as the actual fish finder mount goes, I'm using a Yak Attack universal fish finder mount. This is with the rectangular base. They have one with a small circular base for smaller fish finders. So just make sure when you look it up online that it's compatible with your specific fish finder. They have them for the Garmin, they have them for Humminbird, Lawrence, Raymarine, and on the bottom description there it should just say that it's compatible with your specific size and model. But the thing I love about this is that it has the lock and load system on it, so it just pops right on and right off, and once you click it in, it's not going anywhere, man. It's really cool. I do have another base, lock and load base right here, so I could just switch it up and leave it there if need be. The mount that I use to actually put the Yak Attack mount onto is a Navari handle mount, and this is specifically for the Old Town Sportsman kayak. So you're not going to find this for other kayaks at the moment. It does fit the 106 and the 120 PDL paddle, and he also has a couple versions for the autopilot as well. So dude's an awesome businessman. I'll post a link to this item and to his store in general, so you guys can check out what he has. But the cool thing about having the mount here on the side is that it's right on the side of me and it's out of the way. So even here where it's at is fine, but I might have to scooch up to change the settings, or it's definitely going to get in the way for me casting and landing a fish. So I usually just keep it right here, and again, out of the way, clean presentation. As far as the front hatch is concerned, I have, again, my battery and my transducer cable coming through the hole and connected right here to the battery for the power cable, and the transducer actually comes right through here, again with another Yak Attack seal. I'm using a transducer scupper mount by Navari. Again, he makes this, he created this idea himself, and it's really sweet. So the awesome thing about this is that it keeps your transducer up on the really close to the hull, the highest place that you can possibly really keep it. I do have with this kayak a universal transducer mount, and it works just fine. The only reason I switched and used this mount from Navari is that it keeps it about 2 inches higher than where it would sit otherwise. So it's just to keep it more out of the way and less chance of bumping on some rocks or something when I'm launching. So, but the battery itself sits here. This is a Zoom's 50 amp hour lithium phosphate battery, and I have it, move it out the way real quick. I have it sitting on, it's hard to see here, but some Velcro. So I put some Velcro here where it sits and some on the bottom of the battery, and that way when it's on there, it's nice and solid and it's not shaking around unless I'm in some really crazy wakes, which I try not to be. As far as batteries go, you can go with a sealed lead acid battery, lithium phosphate battery. Lithium's going to be a little bit more, but you get more bang for your buck. It's you get to use the whole capacity instead of just half of it with a sealed lead acid. But it all depends what you need. For a smaller fish finder, you'll be able to get sealed lead acid for a lot cheaper. This Zoom's battery costs about $220. Now you can go with Dakota Lithium or Amped Outdoors, which are awesome batteries as well, and they run a little bit higher than that, but they're awesome, made in America companies. This one and Amper Time, I believe they're made overseas, but they have really good results as far as the testing, which you can find online as well. The most important top tier safety item, forget everything else. If you miss this, you missed the whole point, is you need a life jacket when you're on the water. Okay, I swim really good, and you might swim really good too. I don't care if you're an Olympic swimmer, you need to have this thing on you. Okay, there's lots of different types of life jackets. There's standard ones with no pockets. There's the ones that go over your shoulder that are inflatable. There's fishing life jackets. Just get something. It doesn't matter if it's 10, 20, 30 bucks, 300 bucks. You need something out when you're out there to protect you, because you're not the only one in the water. There's other boaters, there's jet skiers. Unfortunately, there's people out drinking in the summertime, during the holidays and everything. So you want to best protect yourself, and this is the best way to do it. You take an accidental spill, you know, even if you are a good swimmer, like I said, things happen. So protect yourself, get a life jacket. You guys have seen this one before, and you've heard me harp about this point tons of times before. And if you disagree with me about wearing a life jacket, comment below and let me know why you disagree, all right? And I disagree with you automatically, but I'd like to know your point of view, all right? But this is my NRS Chinook OS, and I love this thing. Super comfortable, has a high back, so that way the chair sits right below it, so you're not hunched over on the chair. Has a ton of pockets, clips for different accessories, and it's comfortable. It can get a little bit warmer in the summertime just because that sun's beating on you, and you're wrapped in this. But you know, that's just the price you pay for being safe, all right? The other option is an inflatable life jacket. So something like this Onyx AM24 life jacket. This thing is a lot lighter than the other jackets. So you would just tie this waistband around you and you would put this over as such, and you just have this hanging here. That's it. It's very light, has a little air canister inside that when you hit this little pull tab, it auto inflates like an airbag, and it'll keep you up. So you can turn off the automatic. So with the automatic, if it senses water, it'll inflate. If you turn that off, it'll only inflate if you hit this. So either option is cool. One they have different benefits, but there's other options. Like I said, you can go on Marketplace and find a regular jet skiing life jacket for 10, 20 bucks. Make sure you get yourself covered on the water. That's the most important thing. All right, item number 2, small and simple, but very important, is a whistle. All right, no matter what, you guys should have a whistle with you. They're small and they're cheap, so you have no excuse to not carry one. I have it on a little tether, and what I do is I just put it in one of my pockets in my life jacket, so it's always with me. And it could just simply let people know if you're in trouble, if you've fallen out your kayak and you can't get back in. And it's gonna take a lot less effort than if you're trying to yell your lungs out, the water's cold, whatever. This will carry a lot further. So definitely carry a whistle with you at all times. All right, guys, number 3 is a rescue knife. All right, this is an NRS Neko? I don't know, but it's from NRS, so you know it's quality. It's a rescue knife that is on the PFD, has a clip. So if your PFD has a clip, it'll perfectly sit in there, okay? And this thing has plenty of retention. So what happens is it doesn't come out unless you want it to come out. So why you carry a rescue knife is in case you become entangled with any one of your rod leashes or anything you have tied down and you flip, you know, you can easily get tied up, and it just helps you get out of that situation, all right? So is it 100% necessary? No, you know, but it's a good call, and it's always good to have. For only $40, it's really not a bad option. They have a couple different options. This one has a serrated side to it as well as a sharp side, and it's not the blunted tip. So they have ones that the tip is blunted. That way you can prevent accidentally cutting into yourself or cutting into something with the tip, which is a pretty good call. It also comes with a bottle opener just in case you want to have a cold one on the water, and it has a rubberized grip because you're gonna get wet, and when you're using it, you're gonna be all wet. You don't want your grip slipping around. So again, number 3, rescue knife. Before we get to number 4, just as a reminder, if you don't know already, we have a group on Facebook called Kayak Fishing Dads. So hop on over there, request to join. It's just a growing community of anglers that like to share the catch of the day, ask questions, give advice, share videos, and everything else. So make sure you join the group. Great group of guys, and really happy to be part of it. All right, so number 4 is gonna be a first aid kit. All right, this is my little rinky-dink first aid kit. Nothing special, just a Ziploc bag. I got some Band-Aids in there, got some triple antibiotic, some rubbing alcohol wipes, and also my favorite thing that I actually have in here is this liquid Band-Aid. Right, it's just a little bottle of it, but this thing is clutch. All right, if you ever cut yourself, hook yourself, cut yourself with some line, especially like on a knuckle or something, you put this thing on there, and within a minute it dries up, and you don't gotta worry about getting a wet Band-Aid or nothing like that. So I definitely recommend carrying something simple like this. You can also get something a little bit more extreme, if you will, like a trauma kit or a major blood loss kit, which I would recommend as well. Like if you have a tourniquet or something, because you never know what can happen when you're on the water. So first aid kit is number 4. All right, guys, number 5, last one. You need to get yourself a 360 light. Okay, when you're out on the water, remember you're the slowest vessel out there, and you're the least visible vessel. Okay, so this is a Yak Attack one. Railblazer has them, and there's a couple others that you can do. A lot of people DIY their own, which is great. This is the Yak Attack 360 light. Has some reflective striping, really bright orange flag, orange accents here. All right, and it pops into your rail. So if you have a rail in the back, you can just slide it right on there. You can also buy it with the mounting hardware so that you can pop it. You can just install the mounts on the rear of your kayak, and this same T-bolt will slide onto there and hold on. And it's I believe it's the same price if you get it with or without the mounting hardware, which is pretty sweet. But this has a light on top. All you do is twist it, and boom, it's on. All right, and it's surprisingly bright when you're out there. If you're fishing early morning, late in the evenings, it starts to get dark, or you're fishing at night, it will really just let people know you're there, and it's the most important thing. The sweet thing about this Yak Attack version is that it is very it's very compact when you go to put it away. Okay, so when I have it out, it's about 4 feet long. All right, but you just take this little flag off, which also doubles as a carrying pouch, which is super intuitive. All right, and this breaks apart just like that, and there is your 360 light, and it fits right into your flag. And that's it, man. Super clutch. I love this thing. I definitely recommend that you get it. So in addition to my own experience, I asked the guys over at the Kayak Fishing Dads Facebook group what they wish they knew before they started kayak fishing. So this list that we're going over is a compilation of my experience and the experience of 13,000 other guys around the world that do kayak fishing. And I gotta tell you, I don't disagree with any one of these items on the list, but if you disagree, make sure you comment it down below and let me know, and we'll get talking. And the first thing I wish I knew before starting kayak fishing is the fact that all kayaks are not created equal. There's a ton of different options and hundreds of different kayaks to choose from. And there's gonna be big differences along that group of kayaks, from the size, the weight capacity, whether it has a pedal drive or a motor, or if it's just paddle, and most importantly, the budget as well. So you have to do your research based on your needs, because John, his kayak might be really good for him, but it's not gonna be a good kayak for Tim and Robert, because they fish differently. So do your research based on where you fish. Do you fish rivers? Do you fish big waters? Do you fish tiny creeks or ponds? So that's gonna change what type of kayak you need and which one you think is a great fit for you. You also have to look at the options that you need in a kayak. Do you need a ton of storage, maybe for longer trips or some kayak camping? Do you need a ton of rails? Do you need a warranty? That's something to think about, because not all kayak manufacturers offer warranties, and certainly all the warranties are not the same. There's a big difference between the warranties offered by Old Town and Hobie and Native and Lifetime. Like it's all gonna be different, and you have to make the best decision of what's best for you. And lastly, of course, the budget is probably the biggest factor for a lot of anglers out there looking for their first kayak. And I break down these budgets, these price ranges in 4 different groups. You have your $500 to $1,000 kayaks, you have your $1,000 to $2,500 kayaks, and then you have your $2,500 to $4,000 kayaks. And yes, believe it or not, you can get kayaks that are 4,000 plus, and there's actually plenty of them out there. So you have to make the best decision with that budget in mind. And the second thing I wish I knew about kayak fishing is the fact that kayak fishing is not cheaper than going a different route. I jumped in thinking this was gonna be the cheapest way to go, and like a lot of guys, you find out that you start spending more and more and more, and you decide, well, if I'm gonna get a $1,500 kayak, then maybe I should get the $2,500 kayak, and it just goes up from there. And once you buy the kayak, then you're talking about the accessories. Are you gonna get a fish finder? If so, fish finders could be $100 all the way to $1,500 or more. What accessories are you gonna buy? Are you gonna get a motor? Are you gonna get a battery? And what kind of battery are you gonna get to go with that? So all these things really start to add up at the end of the day, and you can make it a minimalist approach. So don't get me wrong. If you only have $500 to go all in, you can get on the water with that, but you're gonna be very limited in your options. I made a video of what my entire setup cost me, and I'll make sure to post a link down below, but I was super surprised at the end of it how much I ended up paying for my entire kayak setup. And the third thing I wish I knew, which was also the most common response in the group, is to buy your second kayak first. And I know that could be a hard pill to swallow. We're talking about budget a lot so far, but a lot of guys regret getting the cheaper option and then selling it to get the more expensive option that they really wanted at the end of it. A lot of times the better option is just to save a little bit more, go without for a little season, and then get what you really want. Because at the end of the day, you could be spending a lot more money by buying something, modding it out, and then selling it, and then buying something else and modding it out as well. So it can add up real quick. So that's just my advice, is to wait to get what you really want. And number 4 is that fishing kayaks are heavy. They're super heavy. A lot of them are 100 pounds or more. So Don't come in with the expectation that you're gonna sling this thing over your shoulder and walk it to shore. That's just not reality. So make sure you're physically able to move these kayaks. And the bigger the kayak you get, of course, the heavier it's gonna be. A lot of guys end up getting a 12-footer and they find out, man, this is not too easy to move around. So then they size down to a 10.5 feet or 10 feet or something like that. So make sure you're able to move it around. Make sure you get the right transport method as well. So whatever you need to get it from your car to the water. So whether that's the Yak Attack Bunkster, the Wilderness Systems cart, or something else. I did a video comparing the Wilderness Systems cart and the much cheaper Beaver heavy duty cart as well. So I'll copy it down below so you guys can take a look at that. You don't have to spend a ton of money for a really good cart. But the best way to move around a heavy kayak is a trailer. Now, I used to be part of that group that said, oh, if I have to get a trailer for my kayak, I'm gonna just get a boat, old man stuff. Shut up, bro. Just get the trailer. You're gonna love it. It makes staging a breeze. It makes launching a breeze. And you don't have to break your back doing it. Everything is so much simpler with a trailer. It does add to the cost value because these trailers can get expensive, but there's also some good used options as well. I was very intimidated learning how to back up a trailer, but I learned very quickly. By that first time on the water, it took me 15 to 20 tries. After that, it was a breeze and it was like nothing. So I totally recommend getting a trailer. I'm never gonna go back to carting my kayak if I can help it. And the fifth thing guys wish they knew before they started kayak fishing is to get the pedals. This was the second most popular response on the Facebook group when I asked the guys what they wish they knew, and they wish that they would have bought the pedal drives first. It's worth the investment. It is more expensive, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 just for adding the pedal drive system, but it makes your life easier on the water, especially if you're fighting a lot of wind. You don't have to put down your rod to then paddle and then pick up your rod and then the wind blows you and then you got to do the whole thing over. When you have a pedal drive, you can just paddle in the same spot without having to move around too much. It's pretty much hands-free and it allows you to use your legs, which you're not doing anything with anyways while you're fishing. So you're just moving along while you're fighting the fish, fighting the wind, fighting the current, whatever it is. And if you really can't squeeze that money out right now, there's lots of good options of kayaks you can buy that are paddle only that are upgradable to a pedal drive system. Like the New Canoe Unlimited or Frontier, the Vibe Shearwater, the Van Hunks Elite Pro Angler, all of these are upgradable. So you could buy it as a paddle only kayak and then later on spend the money to get the pedal drive system and keep the same kayak. And if you guys want to get more involved with the Bearded Dad fishing community, become a channel member. There's lots of great perks like early access to videos, behind the scene videos, swag, and so much more. I'll put all the information down below and hopefully I'll see you on the other side as a channel member. And number 6 is that guys wished they knew how to fish before buying a fishing kayak. That might sound silly, but it's a critical tip. That was a very popular response as well in the Facebook group, that fishing needs to be learned before kayak fishing can be learned, because then you're learning two things at once. If you're learning how to fish and at the same time learning how to kayak, it just makes it more difficult. Try to get at least the basics, the basic understanding of fishing before you jump on something else that you have to control. Again, you have to control the kayak from wind, from current. You have to do multiple things at once, and learning those at the same time is very difficult. So it's important to learn the basic of your lures, your rods and reels, the seasonality of the fish that you're targeting, the specific species that you want to target. There's a lot of learning to come in fishing, obviously, and you're not going to know all of it before you get to kayak fishing. You're never going to know all about fishing, but learning just the basics of fishing before you jump into kayak fishing will help you out a lot and will make the whole transition from land to water a lot smoother. And number 7 is the fact that weather matters. This is very understated and a lot of guys don't think about this, but you have to be prepared because small changes in the forecast can have major implications on the water, especially if you're fishing offshore, if you're fishing big water, if you're fishing rivers. These changes can happen a lot quicker and without much notice. So it's important to be totally connected into what the weather forecast is, and make sure you have your safety gear with you at all times. Now, this is a non-negotiable for me. No matter where I'm at, I will have my safety gear with me. So make sure you have a good PFD, one that you are comfortable with and one that you're wearing. It's not enough to have it in the tank well behind you. If you're fishing big water or again offshore, have a marine radio in case you have to talk to someone for help, or you might not have cell phone signal out there. Have your whistle, have your first aid kit, just be ready. Obviously you don't want to cut your day short, but most importantly, you want to come back to your family, so make sure you are safe on the water. One of the best ways to stay on top of the weather is with the Omnia Fishing Premium Pro subscription. It's only $50 a year, which is an incredible value, but you can stay on top of the temperature, the precipitation, the wind, which is a big one, any storms rolling in, but it also lets you combine that with other useful information such as the contour maps, bottom hardness, vegetation, and all the things you need to know all in one spot. And again, for only $50 a year, it's an incredible deal and something that you can use to plan your trips and stay up to date while you're on the water. And the eighth thing I wish I knew before starting to kayak fish is that modifications can wait. Again, this is one of the more popular responses when I asked the Facebook group, guys wish they would have waited to mod out their kayaks. There's a lot of options out there, and the reality is you won't know what you need till you spend some time on the water with your kayak. It's easy to go overboard and buy all the things that you want and spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in accessories and gear tracks, fish finders, tackle boxes, all types of things. So that's one of the better tips out there to help you save some money when you're kayak fishing, is to just wait a little bit, get out on the water, figure out what you like about your kayak, what you wish you had, and then just base your decisions on that, and you can save some money in the long run. And number 9 on our list of things I wish I knew before kayak fishing is that storage is important. You have to think to yourself, where are you gonna keep this kayak when it's not on the water? Like we discussed, these fishing kayaks are huge. They can be 12, 13, 14 feet long. So are you gonna keep it in your garage? Are you gonna have it on a rack outside? Both options are okay, but you wanna make sure that it's safe from the sun, because those UV rays will beat it up and make that plastic brittle. It's safe from rodents and rats and everything else. We don't want that. So make sure it's safe from rodents, the sun, the weather, all that stuff. And where are you keeping it in the wintertime? You know, Florida and Texas, you don't count, so move on. But the rest of us that have cold weather and we might not fish for a couple months on our kayak, where do you keep it in the wintertime where it's safe? So just good things to process to make sure you have the space for these kayaks. And the 10th thing I wish I knew before I started kayak fishing is that you need to buy right. Make sure that you invest this money, which is in most cases thousands of dollars, the right way. If you have the possibility, demo your kayak. There's a lot of dealers around the country that have demo days 2, 3, 4 times a year, especially in the summertime, where you can try a variety of kayaks for free. So take advantage of this. Talk to your local dealers, even if you have to make a trip out of it and drive 2 or 3 hours away. Do it and get on these kayaks that you're thinking about buying. You might find out that this kayak is not the right one for you, or it doesn't feel as stable, or it doesn't have the accessories that you would prefer. And the next way to buy right is to buy used. Don't discount the used kayak, because a lot of guys get on the water with these kayaks and they realize it's too heavy, it's too slow, I don't fish as much as I thought I was gonna fish. I wish I had this kayak. And they sell their kayak and you can get a 20, 30, 40% discount on a used kayak that's been on the water less than 10 times. So make sure you look around Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, wherever they sell used stuff, because you can find some really good deals out there. And buying used will allow you to have less financial risk. Make sure you check on the warranties first, because a lot of these warranties are not transferable. And ask the seller as well if you can try it on the water, and you can keep an eye on any leaks or anything funky going on as well. All right, so we just need a couple things to get started. The first is just going to be a basic car wash. So this is a Turtle Wax car wash soap. So you can find this on Amazon or Walmart or any hardware store really. Secondly is 303 aerospace protectant. So this is used, a lot of guys that detail cars use this. What this does is it protects your kayak from the UV rays of the sun. So those UV rays can start to break down the plastics, and it makes it more brittle over time. So this is really important to put on, and we'll put this on at the end after it's all nice and clean. Aside from that, just maybe a rag to clean, to apply the soap and the scrub, a drying rag. You will need a rag for the 303 at the end so that you can just polish it over. A scrub, so a little basic scrub you get from the dollar store. I also have one on a stick that works. That way you don't have to hurt your old man back. And then some buckets just for the water and the soap. And last but not least, a pair of your wife's Crocs, because they got good juju, man. She doesn't even know I'm wearing them. She's probably gonna be upset when she finds out. All right, so the first step what we're gonna do is we're gonna start removing all the accessories. So you wanna take out any of your Yak Attack accessories, your clips, your lock and loads. You wanna take out your seat if you have a removable seat. And then you wanna cover up any electronics, any wires that you might have. So I have a little sandwich bag. So since my wires run through the hole, I can't take the wires out. So I have a little sandwich bag. I'm just gonna tape it around the ends of the wires just so those don't get wet, or I try not to wet them anyways. So we'll do that first. All right, now that all the accessories are removed off the kayak, I'll show you real quick what I mean about covering up your wires. So these are the wires that I covered up. So I just used some duct tape and a little plastic bag. Keep it tucked in there. So now we can get to brushing and using the soap and cleaning up. So one thing that you want to do is make sure you clean up the water line, because that's where a lot of the scum builds up from the lakes and the nasty water. So you'll see like that's the darker part of the dirt. So make sure you get under there and clean that up. You can also flip over the kayak, which I'll do at the end. But yeah, you really want to work those areas because that's where a lot of that crud and crap really build up. And when you're doing this, one of the first things you have to remember to do is make sure all your hatches are closed, because one of mine was not fully closed. So if it's not closed, you're gonna get all that water in there, and we don't want that to happen. All right, once you got everything scrubbed down, grab your hose or bucket of water or whatever and just spray that sucker down. So I sprayed her down, and now there's a couple spots I see I still got to hit, so I'm just gonna scrub it down again and make sure I get those coffee stains out, make sure I get most of those scum lines out, and then we'll be good to go and dry her up, and then start applying the 303. All right, so I actually moved the kayak a little bit because the whole ground was wet from washing it, but so I moved it. We'll get the 303 on there. Just real quick, make sure before you apply this that your kayak is totally dry. All right, so it's important that it's dry because this does not adhere well to the plastic if it's wet. So make sure you take your time, go through with your towel, and make sure all the crevices are dry. Wherever you're applying this, you want it to be dry, or leave it to sit out to dry a little bit in the sun. I don't have that luxury right now because, like I said, it's like 20 degrees over here, so it's a little chilly. So I dried it up as best as I could. But you're gonna want your rag and your spray. And what you're gonna do is you can spray this directly onto the kayak, which is fine on the bigger areas. For the smaller areas, your best bet is to spray onto the rag and get into those crevices. And you're gonna wipe it down. It's almost like staining wood. Like you're gonna wipe it down and try to get, there's no clumps, there's nothing else. If you have another rag to kind of follow up with it, that's even better. But we wanna get a nice coat on there. It's gonna get really shiny, and that's what you want, because this is basically feeding the oils back into your hull that the sun and the UV rays just sucked right out of it. So take your time, go through it. Like I said, dry it, and now we're gonna get to the UV protectant 303. All right, guys, she's all cleaned up, she's shiny. That 303 spray goes on real easy. It's important, so make sure you put that stuff on it. Take care of your kayak, and she will take care of you. And if this video was helpful, please subscribe to the channel and check out my favorite kayaks for big guys like me right here. So till next time, guys, peace and God bless.